Thank you, Alex. So welcome, everybody. It's really great to have you here tonight. This is a collaboration between the Augmented World Expo and XR Guild, and we're happy and very grateful and thankful for ASU and the New and Emerging Media program to host us here in this lovely food. So thank you very much. For those of you who aren't familiar with AWE, we have 4 conferences throughout the world. It's the longest and biggest augmented reality conference that's been going on for, I think, almost 15 years now. Is it 15 or 14? 13? A long time. And we have local chapters, and the local chapters work independently. There's 34 of them across the world. And early bird tickets are only $6.95 for the event coming up this year in Long Beach. The regular price is $14.95. So I suggest you get your tickets soon. The early bird special will end on March 31st. So there's a conference in Long Beach, in Asia, the EU, and Israel. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the AWE Academy, there's some fundraising course, and then there's a web AR that's a beginner course for workshop. You can learn about that at the AWEXR.com website. That's where you can get information about the registration as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce Avi. Hi. Avi's going to say a little bit about the XR Guild.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. All right. We want to tell you a little bit about the XR Guild. I don't want to take more than 5 minutes because we've got some great speakers coming up, and I don't want to take away from all that. But the Guild is something we started about 2 years ago with the idea that the people who work in the field of spatial computing, XR, whatever you want to call it, we're all pretty thoughtful, caring people, but yet products get built that are not always great for people. How does that happen? It happens because bad decisions get made in certain companies along the way, and we can do better, and we want to do better. So one of the ways we want to address this is by having professionals in the field join an organization that will help educate and support each other so that when the hard decisions come up, we have the resources, the support to be able to make the right decisions and have the products come out better than they have in the past. I don't want to just tout one company, but I did spend a few years at Apple and worked on the Apple Vision Pro, and I feel pretty good about the decisions that were made along the way in terms of privacy and safety and things like that. Not that I agree with everything, but certainly it's a team thing, I mean, and everybody has some input. But I'm pretty happy with how things came out in general. So I'm just going to ask a quick question, and we can do this with a show of hands. I'm going to give you 4 choices as to what you think ethics are. I'm curious to see what you would say they are without me telling you what I think it is. So let me go through A, B, C, and D. I'm going to ask each one, for each letter, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you think it's that one. So really, A, is it a moral or religious duty? Is that what ethics is about? If you agree with that, raise your hand. Okay, couple, that's good. B, is it a duty to each other? We usually get a lot of that. So I'd say 50, 60% of the room was on B. C, is it that we should carefully consider the choices of the overall results to make sure the outcome is the outcome we want? Say C, okay? And D is just a bunch of BS. Ethics doesn't mean anything. I would say there's always one in every crowd who says that. I did this back when I was on Twitter. I want to personally thank Elon Musk for getting me off Twitter. It saved a lot of my time. Now I'm on LinkedIn, unfortunately, but almost just as much. But I did a poll back then, and just so you could see, it was about 60% of the people said B. So people on Twitter agreed with you. I personally are going with C, because I think even if you don't have a moral compass, even if you don't think that it's a duty to each other. If your goal is just to create a great product, ethics is still the right way to go, because it's all about studying what goes wrong and trying to do it right. Figuring out where the mistakes are made and overcoming those mistakes. So the organization's purpose is to have the members join us, become part of it. We called it a guild, not because of Hollywood guilds, labor unions, and all that. We called it a guild because of the original sense of guilds. People who, in a common field, who would support each other and teach each other, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to support everybody. So everybody that's in the guild, we ask them to do a little bit of volunteering. Right now, it's free to join. But the most important thing that we ask you to join is that you have a sense of ethics that we think is important. So what we do is we publish a set of principles that we believe in. And if you accept the principles, you can join. Right now, that's the only requirement to join. You say you're in the field, doesn't matter if you're a student, don't make any money, we don't care. Just be serious about the field. We just don't want a whole bunch of people who aren't in the field. But read the principles and see if you agree with them. And there's details for each one of these. So if you go to our website, xrguild.org, you'll see each one of these principles broken down into steps. These are all learned from experience, from mistakes that were made. They're all there for a reason. And if you want to change the principles, also join, because we have a democratic process for voting on these. So we're happy to change them over time and evolve them. Last year, we added a lot more detail about child safety than we had originally. So that's something people felt was important, so feel free to go ahead and add it. So there's a QR code you can use to take you right to the site. Super simple, it's just xrguild.org. The last thing I'm gonna say is if you do have an opportunity throughout the show, you get over to our swag table in the back. I keep saying swag, it's not actually pronounced that. I just say it that way. I looked it up, it's actually Scandinavian, it should be swag, if anything. But over there, I brought a few items, and the way this works is if you go donate, we're a charity, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. If you donate, show me your receipt. Whoever has the highest donation gets to pick first from the stuff on the table. I didn't bring a lot, but I brought enough so that if you like it and you want it, you can have it now. Just walk up to me with your phone and show me the receipt later, and it's much faster than an auction, so please do. And with that, I will turn it back over to Susan.
And we're going to now introduce Nani de la Pena from ASU and the new emerging media program.
As she's coming up, I just want to give a big thank you to everyone here at ASU for supporting us. Obviously, Dr. Nite de la Pena has been doing tremendous work here. And special thank you to Riot, to David, to Alex, and to everyone here at ASU. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Okay, well, my little slides didn't make it in before this. Did they come after this? It doesn't matter. We're just going to go on. So if there's these slides are after this, because we tried to combine things, so forgive me if my slides come up after this, I'll just skip them. But, you know, why are we here? Why is ASU here, right? It's because this is like the global capital of, you know, narrative, entertainment. It has become a really anchor point for XR. And ASU has just been all in on immersive. If you followed what's happened in Arizona, we are, the border between California and Arizona is pretty, you know, porous. But this decision to think about us as a place to really, really host immersive was very important. And in this program, in which we're really trying to think about things like haptics for inclusion, how do we create labs of civic affection where we can cross barriers using technology for good, we also were lucky enough to create a graduate program here. And here's a little bit more about that, and I'm so happy that some of my students are here tonight.
Arizona State University is ranked #1 in innovation, ahead of Stanford and MIT for the past 8 years. Now, ASU is offering a brand new one-of-a-kind master's program in narrative and emerging media to create new narratives in augmented, virtual and extended reality, virtual production, and experiential media. Based at ASU's new Los Angeles campus, the program for narrative and emerging media is a collaborative effort between the Sidney Poitier New American Film School and the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. This program draws on the talent of the global entertainment capital of the world to drive innovation and inclusion for next-generation storytelling. The curriculum for this one-year program arms students with cutting-edge visual storytelling techniques taught by top industry innovators, including award-winning directors Nani de la Pena and Mary Matheson. Students explore the emerging media toolkit, learn about the marketplace, connect with the field's top professionals, and develop critical media project management skills to tell creative fictional stories or nonfiction journalistic work. Housed in the recently renovated historic Herald Examiner building, the ASU California Center was custom designed to include a state-of-the-art emerging media hub with a green screen studio for virtual reality and live broadcasts, a planar LED wall with OptiTrack and disguise systems for driving industry-standard virtual productions and immersive content. Here, students master methods for integrating values of equity and social justice into their research, while remaining mindful of the needs of communities impacted by their work, and ensuring diverse creators tell stories from their own perspectives. You can create your own future and reality right here by joining us at ASU's Master's Program in Narrative and Emerging Media.
Okay. Right, we have it twice. Yeah, yes, this is, I meant to put these in ahead of time. My fault for not checking, but there you go. I'm going to stop from there.
We are going to have a fantastic panel, and thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Evo Haining. I will be our moderator today. I am also a creator, producer, and have been in various seats, as some of you have been over the last 20 years, as a strategist, as an artist, as someone exploring and experimenting and researching and trying to figure it out. So I have a world building design lab, and we're in the East Bay, but I'm here in my role at XRGUILD as vice president of the board. This is part of our local meetup, and part of our goal is to make sure that people are less isolated and more connected across our industry. So it doesn't matter if you're a student or if you've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. We hope that you will meet someone new tonight, maybe get some ideas for collaboration, and hopefully take something away that helps you grow your work, whatever that might be. So please feel free to reach out to me if I can support you in that. And I'm going to welcome our panelists to the stage. Jackie Morey, Dr. Jackie Morey from All These Worlds LLC. We already have Nani de la Pena here from Arizona State University, also the program director at Narrative and Emerging Media Program and CEO at Emblematic Group. We have a virtual guest, Sultan Sharif. He is the chief investigator at the Quasar Lab. There he is. He's going to be sharing with us in just a moment. We have Arturo Perez, founder at Cluj Interactive. Thank you for joining us all the way from the other side of the city. Thank you for making the traffic drive. And I am Evo. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we're going to have a moment where I'm going to have each of our speakers here maybe tell you a few words about their work and maybe why it's meaningful to them or why they chose to pursue that path. So we're going to start with Dr. Jackie Morey. Can we bring our slides back, please?
Just checking. Right? No? It's on. Okay, good.
All right. So I'm going to show the website while you talk, and I think we do have it on the screen up here.
Okay. So, you know, I got started in this area many years ago, so kind of in the ancient times, probably before most of you were around, except a few of you in the audience that are elders like me. So I've been really privileged to work in many areas of this industry over the years, from research to production to doing fine art with immersive techniques. And it's been a real joy to watch this all emerge and become a lot more democratic and have so many more wonderful creative eyes and practitioners that are working on this. Now, when I was working at the Institute for Creative Technologies, where I met Nani, that's the story. Nani was my intern.
Yeah.
The godmother of VR was my intern. I don't know what that makes me. But I was really lucky to be able to work on some cutting edge research in expanding the vocabulary of virtual reality, virtual worlds, and take it to a level that everybody now can start from there and keep going. So that's been amazing. Yep. What am I doing?
Just hold it close. We don't want to lose any of your words. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
I get it, rock star mode. Okay. So sorry if you didn't hear all that. But the work I did at the Institute for Creative Technologies, I think, was really foundational in so many ways to create techniques and a vocabulary for how we create immersive experiences. In 2013, I spun off my own company. You might see a website up there for it that Evo's looking at, so you can see more of what we do there. But that's been now over 10 years where I've been working on production, research, setting up studies for companies that are doing their own work. And there's so many things that we've been involved in. One of the projects was for NASA. That was the project called Ansible, where we created a bespoke set of virtual worlds for 6 scientists who were locked up for a full year with no real-time communication with the outside world. And we found that by giving them virtual reality spaces to go in, that they missed Earth a lot less. And so it's really the foundational work for anybody we're going to send to Mars, God help them. So very excited to be here tonight and share some of this work with you and with my other esteemed panelists.
Thank you, Jackie. And I like hearing that applause. That's really important. It's really good to make sure that we value each other along the way. And I've been lucky to know all 3 of these people for well over 10 years. Arturo Perez, would you tell us a little bit about what Cluj is and what you're up to?
Sure. And Ivo, you're one of the few that... Oh, testing.
We might have to turn you on. No. Here, use mine.
Oh, there it is.
Here we go.
Right. Hello? Can you hear me? Nope. Back to you, Ivo. Testing. All right, here we go. Cool. And yeah, so I was saying that I actually know Ivo longer than Cluj. We've known, you know me from my pre-Cluj days, and I think you're one of the few people in LA that I can talk about that.
A
That's
long
great.
history in interaction design.
That's right. So yeah, I founded Cluj in 2007. It originally started as a design studio, strategic design, and we moved into VR in 2016. And so we're now 75 people and growing, 76 maybe. We're doing a lot of stuff. We're juggling a lot of balls, which was always in Cluj's DNA, and now we're just doing it in the immersive space. So we are the creators of Synth Riders, which is our flagship game, and we're coming up with a new game called Final Fury. So we're taking classic arcade fighting, reimagined for VR. So we're in the middle of that. We're 3 years in production, still going. It's been a tough challenge, but it's exciting. It's getting really exciting. And then we also work with Meta on the Horizon Worlds. So we do a lot of work with them. We've been working with them since 2021. We have 30 people, more like 35 people working for Horizon Worlds now. So pretty busy on the, we have a work for hire side, and then we have our titles. This is gonna
Try it. There
Cool.
you go.
All right, so I want to tell you a little bit about Synth Riders. That's our rhythm game, and we just got a new logo debuting today. It started in 2017 as a prototype, and then I think we knew we had a new business when it took off on the Quest store in 2019, at the end of 2019, and it's been rocking for us ever since. So we have a lot of music on it, people like Bruno Mars, Lindsey Sterling, The Offspring, and etc. We have some exciting music coming. But I'm most excited that today is the day that we launch on Apple Vision Pro. So, So that's why we redesigned the brand, and it has a whole new look and feel. And I wanted to show you guys a little bit of a clip of what it looks like on the new device. So yeah, we've been sending builds up to last night. So everybody's been hard at work. So it's really nice to see it come together for today. At one point, we weren't sure. So it's a really exciting time. And I want to thank actually Jackie. I don't know if you remember me, but I actually came to you in 2016 for help on an event I had on the issue of presence. And you were very kind. You took coffee with me and you helped me put the concept together. So you're right. You were the foundation, and you and Nani have been heroes of mine before we were anything. So really appreciate what you guys brought to the table as well. Thank you.
I'm going to take the clicker from you. Keep the mic. Collaboration goes a long way, and each of these people has been so generous with their time, energy, creativity in order to help other people get projects moving forward. We are now going to hear from Sultan. Sultan Sharif is Chief Investigator and Instigator at the Quasar Lab. I think we can hear you now. Let's have your voice.
Yeah, hello, everybody.
You tell me when to hit play, and I'll hit play on this video, okay?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick intro. My background is originally in film. I started out doing indie features. I then had that moment, like many people, where I put on a VR headset the first time in 2015 and immediately just saw, sort of like jumped to the future and saw all the potential. And so I went to school and ended up starting my own lab to explore different ways to engage different communities in making XR. So you can go ahead and roll the video.
All right.
MIT Reality Hack has been like life-changing experience.
And together we're working on a community-based augmented reality memory sculpture.
AR or VR technology that helps students explore the different types of intelligences.
Physics class meets music theory made fun VR experience.
Immersive or interactive reading experience.
Use AR to improve the education system.
Interactive art installation, looks at people's emotions in a space.
Generative storytelling application.
Currently trying to build out avatars that are really inclusive in the sense of body types, skin tones, able-bodied versus disability.
AI, VR, mixed reality to actually create tiny homes for the unhoused.
So I want to come up with a solution that allows everybody to practice speaking a second language for free.
So this is an iterative experiment where I'm developing an augmented reality experience, which will be something that you wear in a headset. I'm actually doing different versions of it that are like live performances. Then we're gonna go back and take all the things that we learn and go back into augmented reality. I really want to figure out a way to commune with ancestors. And so I came up with this experience to film these volumetric holograms of my ancestors based on the DNA results you saw. British, Irish, Congo, Southeast African, French, German, Finnish, Scandinavian, Spanish, Portuguese. African hunter-gatherer, Indonesian, Thai, Baramiana, Filipino, Austronesian, South Asian, and Native American. So I worked with an interpretive dance instructor, and we created holograms of each of them, and then she developed dances for each of them, and then we do a live performance, which we're going to do now, as a ceremony.
Just one guy who would lay down his life for you and I. It's hard to say it, it's hard to say it, but it's probably me.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of my work is really focused on I created actually a design methodology. That's what my master's is focused on, because I wanted to sort of question the way we create these technologies and really think deeply about who's in the room and sort of like how much space we create to think about our ancestors and to think about sort of all the different experiences that might have led us to the moment of design. And so my design methodology is called HYPE, which stands for holistic, meaning put your whole self into what you're making. Intuitive, meaning listen to your gut and your instincts, and you bring that into what you're making. Iterative, just start, and then we keep iterating. I've been iterating this project since 2019, the last one you saw. Then project evolution. You let a project evolve and as part of sort of like its natural course of growth, as opposed to saying, here's this hard deadline, and I'm going to like squeeze the project, whether it's done or not, into like these parameters. And so I'm now doing my PhD at USC, turning that design methodology into a toolkit that other people can use. And I focus a lot on also working with marginalized communities and bringing them into the design process.
You're getting me hype on that. I love it. I love where you're going with that. Thank you for the introduction. We're going to come into conversation, but thank you for joining us. Alex, can we bring we have our last set of slides that...
Swap out real fast.
All right.
That was the fastest thing we decided to do. Yeah, and I would have happily done this sitting down, but I'm going to stand up for you all. Okay. Come on. Do I need to... Oh, let me just get that sound ready.
And I'm just going to set you up by saying I have been lucky to see this amazing woman work for the better part of 15 years now on amazing storytelling experiences that really shift perspectives. So if you haven't had a chance to see her work yet, I would encourage you to check out Emblematic Group.
Thank you so much. Well, you guys give me 1 sec, and we should be able to get the event space for the sound. Do I need a code on this? I can't believe this is the one time. I've done this so many times in this place. I'm having trouble. I cannot tell you. Why I'm not getting my mouse. What are you guys seeing? Seeing my kids when they were little.
All right.
I know. Well, let's see if I can do this in the little mini way. And let's hope our sound goes.
Woohoo!
Yeah, but let's go to the start.
Looking good.
Okay. Enter the airplay code for event space. Do I need to do that, y'all, or are we good? All right, let's hope the audio goes. It doesn't really matter. So Martha Gellhorn called what we do the view from the ground as journalists. We're trying to give our audience the view from the ground. And my background was I came as a correspondent for Newsweek. This is one of my cover stories I worked on, where I went and hung out for 24 hours with a cracked in to try to tell people what it was like to be there. And that was what motivated me to do a piece when people during the Great Recession were going hungry. You can't make people feel hungry, but if I could put you on scene, maybe you'd have some compassion for the situation. And it really drove me to do something about it. And I had all these characters who were donated, built this for $700. I had to learn Unity. Unity, as you know, it can be a slightly uncomfortable learning process, but you can do some amazing stuff with it. Really worth hanging in there. That piece got into Sundance. It was the first virtual reality piece to be shown there. And yet here we are in this crazy ass headset, which some of you may know. We had Palmer Luckey, who after this, he wasn't old enough to drink yet, but at this point he crashed in my hotel room, driving the truck around with us, helping us build these headsets. And here people are on this crazy, crazy contraption. Which actually, some of my headsets are being shown in a museum in London this spring, but that's how old I am. I'm a museum piece now. But what was amazing was to see all these people on the ground trying to touch, trying to talk to the seizure victims, because the piece was about a man who didn't get food in time, and his blood sugar drops too low, and he collapses in a diabetic coma. And all these people are trying to help. And it was this sort of extraordinary moment. So jump to how I went from there to doing all this work for Emblematic Group. Sorry, that his audio is meant to be off, but never mind. I'm going to go ahead and quickly scrub through that and just sort of say After Solitary was a project, We Who Remain, Out of Exile, did a piece on the Carte Machine, an AR piece for the Wall Street Journal, a piece about abortion rights, domestic violence. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. I've done a lot of work in the space after that. But as we sort of struggled to make this sort of stuff, I think a lot of us in this room are probably excited about what AI brings to us. So this is a Gaussian splat. If you haven't done one yet, they're really fun, that we did upstairs. 3 minutes of filming and 40 minutes of waiting, and now you have a full volumetric capture of humans, whereas before I was doing those awkward people on the streets of LA. So here we are, 12 years later, but the tools are getting better and better and better, and obviously with the launch of things like the Vision Pro, big industry players are really betting a lot into this movement. So if you're here now, you're actually really on a cusp as things start to change. But one thing I loved about the XRGUILD's ethics, which I was just teaching Society of Professional Journalism ethics to my students last night, and there's definitely some overlap. And one of the reasons why to be thinking all the time, shot in 2020, right? Trying to send a video in for during COVID. So recently I took that video and I was like, hey, let me run into Runway AI. And I'm like, can you just remove the green screen for me? Let's see what you can do. And I just did a quick screen grab, and this is what it did. It put everything awash in green and turned me into this blonde, buxom woman. So as we leave on that cautionary note of why we're here and what we're doing and what our ethics are and the exciting world of AI, take it with you to think, you are the people, as we were starting this, really cusp of a new thing, who need to shepherd it as well. And I really appreciate everybody's here, everybody's watching, who are guardians of this new galaxy. Okay.
I think we can bring Sultan back up on the screen if possible. It's okay. We might be able to get him from upstairs. That's totally fine. So we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about not just getting something over the finish line, whether it's a story or a game or an experience, but the conversations that teams and leaders need to have along the way to get there. And that includes ethics and how that might play into journalism and storytelling. And that also includes, it seems like for each of you, in some way, whether that's reality hack or hardware, actually creating some of the tools you need to do your work effectively. And I've watched you. Jackie, for example, worked on a scent collar and has been working on hardware for the immersive experience with smell for a very long time. We got to see a little bit of those first VR glasses that now that was 15 years ago now, 16 years ago. I would love to hear from each of you, and we can popcorn this out. How are you approaching innovation and creating your tools or sharpening your tools in order to do your best work? What does that look like in your day-to-day work today? And Sultan, I'm going to pass it to you first because you've just come off of Reality Hack, right? So you're helping other people build tools, software, all sorts of things. Can you talk to me a little bit about the experience and the process that you go through to get there?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing that we focus on is diversity. and really thinking critically about how we're setting, even from our application, like how are we creating an experience for people so that we don't end up with the same, sort of same type of the folks in the room. We work really hard on that. We do a lot of fundraising around that. We were able to get like a $25,000 grant from Rockefeller Family Fund, specifically for scholarships for BIPOC folks, and then on top of our normal scholarships that we offer. So for me, I think really critically about how you're welcoming people into your space. To me, design begins like with how someone is invited to come into the room, as well as like how they enter the room, how you make space for people, how do you create safe spaces for people, and then I feel like whatever you're going to be making is going to be born out of the environment in which you are cultivating ideas. And so I focus a lot, both in my personal work, but also my work with Reality Hack, on creating a space where people can sort of push limits and not be afraid to sort of get messy. One thing that I used to do, because I've always run youth programs and bringing usually lower income youth into the design process. So I would bring them to campus when I was at MIT. I brought them onto campus when I was at the University of Michigan, and still doing it today. And I would get markers, and as soon as I got brand new headsets, I would mess them all up. we would have a graffiti party, and we would get markers and Sharpies, and we would just graffiti all over the headsets. And just doing little things like that to keep people, because a lot of times when I would put these new technologies in people's hands, they'd be afraid they would break them. And so they wouldn't even think of sort of wild and crazy things to do. They felt like they had to do these sort of color within the lines. And so a lot of my work is about challenging what the lines are and who gave us the instructions of what to color. And so, yeah, so for me, I think a lot about just creating the space, and then once you get to that point, then free thinking and designing from the heart, because you've created a space where you feel safe and comfortable enough to be open and bring your full self into that space.
Would any of you like to follow up on that? As you have different types of teams, each of you. You have a team that's international, for example. How have you gone through this design process to create a cohesive team?
Yeah, so we have our office is Discord, and people are always like trying to work with us on Slack, and we're like, oh, we don't do that one, and they're like, really? So yeah, we have everybody. So we have the Horizon team is split up, and the Final Fury team and the Synth Riders team. So we have this sort of teams, but then we also encourage mutual collaboration. So it's been a lot about how to run a decentralized company, 15 different countries, getting together and working at the bleeding edge of innovation. 15. 1-5, yeah.
Okay, and
yeah.
All English language or both?
So I mean, the core of Kluge is I'm from Venezuela, and I've been here since '94. But I actually, in 2010, lived in Venezuela again to meet my two co-founders. So we're four. So we have 3 Venezuelans and 1 Australian, and we call the Australian the English version of the Caribbean. And that's the core, that's the foundation of the company. And I think that international flair to us has really served us well. And we have a balance. I think there's like 23, like one third in North America and here in the United States, and then another 1/3 in South America, and then another 1/3 in Europe, and then we have 2 Australians, which they accommodate to the time zone, but they're the most difficult, I would say. And so we have it. I think that core of diversity and differing opinions and international culture since the roots, since before we were doing VR, really helped us. We even before, because we've been around since 2007, back in 2010, we were already building with Latin America, and we never thought about it as outsourcing. We just thought about it as like one team. I have noticed, being sort of half Venezuelan, half American in that sense, that there is a culture here that's really good at process and precision and pragmatism. But we have that flair of like improvisation and going with the flow, and that combination has been lethal for us. And I think I'm very proud of our Slavic name Kluge, in that it's this inelegant, patchy way of working around things, and it sounds really funny, but it's really true of technology, and especially true of emerging technologies, that you got to embrace the things not working. We definitely did with the launch of this new device. When you're at the bleeding edge, you got to embrace those unknowns, use the process loosely, and have a culture of good communication and collaboration. And so thankfully, when we were 10 people, we spent a good time of our lives, like a decade as 14 people. And when we grew in the last 2 years, that culture was really set and solidified, and that international, even though it was smaller, it was already there. And so that foundation has really helped us.
So 2 very different perspectives on culture and ethics. Go ahead.
So I agree with both of you guys in terms of keeping open spaces where people feel comfortable sharing wild and crazy ideas, if you will. And that's something I've always tried to cultivate, is bringing a team together that the ideas can be as crazy as you want. And that's where the real innovation happens. My other way of working is to do this with young people. So people that have never really been working in the field, but to bring them in and let them loose on problems that they see are out there. When I had my first job in VR, we had an after-hours group called the Toy Scouts. And the Toy Scouts were undergrad and high school students that would come in on Friday nights to use the equipment that the military had bought for these studies that we were doing for them. Very basic perceptual studies, like what's your vision in headsets of 1989. Not very good, by the way. But the kids didn't have any of those preconceptions. They came in and they were like, oh, we can make this. We can make these full body immersive games. We can do this. We can do that. And they made them. And we probably had 20 or 30 games come out of that Toy Scouts lab. We also had an Adopt a Techno Kid program where we'd bring kids in from underserved areas, and I would work with them in the afternoons to teach them Maya, or it was Alias back then, but and we would make things like basketball courts, and they would teach me how to do the tagging on the basketball courts. So that was great fun, and I've done that ever since. I've really tried to bring young people into the conversation and let their voices be heard in ways that they might not have felt like they had a voice before. The latest thing that I've been involved with is with the XR initiative. We just finished an African mentor program. So we had about 12 students, all from Africa, who spent 10 weeks building something, not quite a hackathon, but being mentored by people and bringing in some really amazing cultural immersive experiences from that group. So that's the way I like to work. I like to bring in people who've never done anything before, hear what they have to say, and try and form them into a cohesive group, and then let them loose on the world.
I think this issue is exactly why I'm here. After having run, a decade in Momatic, making all that stuff, I still found that most of the time I was dealing with a monoculture. That we weren't seeing new voices. I would do an intern here, an intern there. It's all I could afford to do because you had clients, you got to deliver projects. You're trying to make sure your studio stays afloat. And when ASU came to me and said, we want you to run a center, and by the way, we have the largest number of first-generation kids, and by the way, your master's program is going to be a quarter of what it costs to go anywhere else, I was like, okay, I'm in. If I really wanted to change things, I had to make a commitment in a big way, and so that's what led me to become head of this new program. I'm thrilled that my students like Cameron Kostopoulos, who did a big piece on the trans experience, ended up winning the top prize at South by and going to the Venice Film Festival. I could go on with the successes of my amazing students, Jose Mariquin, Nigerian student Chamela, who has gone on to run the virtual production stage. Anyway, so this is how I feel like I'm giving back, by literally being here to do the best that I can do to help fundraise for scholarships. So that's one thing. The other thing I have kind of bootstrapped, and I would say very much bootstrapped, not kind of, for better or for worse. It does need a little bit of love right now, but built a WebXR platform, try.reach.love, which was an idea of like, how do you just let people start to play, start to understand what happens when you move a camera? What happens when you create a volumetric space and then you drop some animations into it? How do we look at it? Where is the lighting? How do we change colors? How do we put people in there? Just simple, basic things that when you have such a history of everybody being taught how to do flat stuff, right? I mean, that's it. Everybody understands flat things. How many people have tried to draw in a program like Tilt Brush before, right? And it's so different. You're trying to draw in volume. You're not trying to draw flat. And that concept is you have to shift people's thinking. And so who can afford it with a headset? How do we just provide a tool that people can do on their phone, a computer, whatever? How do we make it more accessible? And so that has been my goal with the beta is try.reach.love. We're hoping to put some AI tools in there very soon, but that's also been my commitment to just try to democratize even the basic understanding of how you create in the space.
And I think that's what we're going to need moving forward. If you can imagine, right now there are maybe hundreds of thousands of XR creators on the planet. How do we get to tens of millions, hundreds of millions? It's having solutions that are very easy to publish toward, that make it far more a level playing field for everyone around the world to be able to create their own experiences and worlds without necessarily having a 6-figure 3-year budget to 7-figure 3-year budget to pull off a game.
That's not how we started, Ivo. We're very scrappy.
Most of us have to be.
You had to be to start in 2016. You better be scrappy, you forget it.
Yeah, I had to shelve a VR project because we ran out of money. And I think for many of us, we've been there. It was a little bit like the experience that you were building, Sultan, with tiny houses and thinking about what our villages could be. What could our solutions for displacement look like? And so I think there are so many opportunities for storytelling, for interaction design, for world building, for creative rethinking of our boundaries and our perspectives that can be unlocked once we have a bit more access to these tools. Right now, we're sort of magicians up here for the rest of the world. There aren't a lot of folks who understand what you do in full, right? And could try and bring all of those pieces together. I am very curious. We started off today with a conversation about ethics and ethical design considerations and the kinds of inquiries that we need to be having when we're trying to design our best possible work, whether that's a world or a VR app or a process. I would love to hear from you. What are some of the tougher questions that you've had to sit with? Whether that's in your own teams or in your own work, in your creative flow. Maybe that's an ethical consideration. Maybe that's something with the new devices and you're thinking about, obviously, our XR devices know so much about the world and about us. And how we design for those considerations is vitally important for what's going to change about our culture generations from now. So how are you thinking about those cultural shifts and about those inquiries in your own work?
Yes, I can speak to Synthwire specifically because there's a lot of ethical considerations that have come into it. I'll try to go through some briefly. It's a movement game. We didn't necessarily know that at the beginning, the fitness side. And once we realized we had a responsibility for people's bodies. So how we map has gotten very intentional, and we're very careful with our policies. We have a community that does map on their own, and some of that stuff is not that safe, and we've noticed. So when we map, we take a long time, sometimes longer than I from the business side would like, but it is an ethical consideration. It's absolutely necessary. So movement is a big deal in XR, and I think when we come up with new, like right now that there's no heuristics still, we have to be very careful with what we do with people's bodies, especially when we're asking them to do it repetitively. So that's a big consideration for us. The other one's actually the multiplayer side. So when you have so much presence involved, in our case we have avatars. We actually made a decision to lock our players into these hexagons so they have some personal space. And that's because we didn't have the budget to build a VR chat or a rec room, right? So when you look at how to do this ethically, there's a lot of options you have to give players, given different ranges of space, and so there's respect. How do you deal with the hands and all the gestures that can come from that? And even in our beta testing, people were doing naughty things, and we had to iterate upon that. So really looking out for that. There's a lot of stories out there of things gone wrong in these social spaces, and because they're so much more immersive, we're just that much more responsible. So those two in particular are XR, and then with Synth Riders, we deliberated on it being competitive. It's a very competitive game, but that's not what we encourage. We're sort of one of our taglines is freestyle rhythm, and we really love for you to put your moves in it and to enjoy it and not take it so seriously, because the competitive part can also build a toxic community, and so we've actually intentionally stayed away from that. We've made decisions like you cannot see a ranking of all the best Synth Rider players across the board. We don't allow that. We have them fragmented because we notice that's a small percentage of our audience and they want to win on everything, and that's not the spirit of the game. So how to balance that competitive community, which we do want to sort of appease and have them engage, but also build this sort of more freestyle rhythm game approach. So those are some of the considerations. There's much more, but XR has its unique ones, and then there's sort of running a game and a community.
How about the rest of you? What kinds of questions are coming up for you in your ethical design table?
So if you're doing basically nonfiction stories, there's a lot of considerations. My poor students, I made them go through last night the very lengthy series of ethical considerations that the Society for SPOJ, Society for Professional Journalists, publish. And really, frankly, I think they're kind of a code of ethics for life. Really, if you could adhere to those, you'd do very well. But this becomes a very interesting question. Are you going to show violence? When I did the piece on the domestic violence piece, where the ex-partner of this woman shoots and kills her, and there's incredible audio, and I had all this, footage and stuff. You are not in the room when it happens. You never see the dead bodies. Like, those are the kind of ethical questions that, if you're doing journalism, you have to be really careful about. What is it going to be for telling the truth without traumatizing people? And you have to ask yourself that every single time you do a nonfiction piece that's meant to be impactful or to try to create change. Certain people are going to be deeply affected. With hunger, I totally screwed up because I just didn't have enough budget to deal with the fact that when this man has his diabetic coma, basically I didn't have enough money to mocap the paramedics picking him up and putting him in the ambulance. So basically what we did is we just let him kind of pass out. And you can hear the ambulance guys in the real audio say, hey, I'll, you ready to, get a ride to the hospital. But a lot of people thought he died. So people I put through this piece thought that I was basically watching them, making them watch death. And exactly. Like, I regret that, I realized after a number of people went through and then made sure that I gave warnings that he didn't die. But that was an afterthought. So I've made plenty of mistakes along the way.
And I think that's why you need like a little focus group to find out how people are going to respond to that. And it's difficult to balance, authenticity and trauma. And one of the things that I think we have to be very careful of, and certainly there's a lot to unpack with data privacy and, what do companies know about us? What do we do in a social situation? Because once you bring other people in, it gets really messy. But the other one that I always think about is the power of this medium. This medium has the power to change the way we think, change the way we act. It can actually create new neural pathways. And that is a very powerful tool that we have to be super careful with. We have to be as ethical as we possibly can. We have to say, why are we doing this? What is the outcome we want? Who do we want to affect? Who do we warn before they come in? Who do we give a choice to so that they know this thing may change me forever? And I don't think that we talk enough about the power of this medium and how we really, really don't know what it can do for us yet.
Sultan?
One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is accessibility from like an ADA perspective. I had the pleasure to work with Nani and Riot on a Haptics for Inclusion lab, and we've been thinking through using haptics as a way to sort of create a different language for people who might be differently abled from a physical standpoint. And then actually now we're working on a piece with a disabled artist designing like a new haptic experience. And I think a lot of times, because it's something that's visual, we immediately just jump into the designing. But I think stopping and taking a second to think about who gets to have an experience and who you're welcoming into that experience, it challenges you in a lot of ways to rethink your design. I have another piece where we are struggling with subtitles. And the importance we set out and said that we want to make sure that this is accessible, or as accessible as possible. And so we set out to do this, but then sometimes the budget honestly comes up, you come up against the budget versus how accessible you want to be, and you have to figure out how to negotiate that and make some really, really tough choices. And in this case, we were doing something in another language, but then we also had the English language speakers, and we wanted to make sure that they were all subtitles as well. But they're walking in it's a nightmare for an editor. They're walking around in a 360 video talking, and then we're trying to follow them with subtitles, but then not make the subtitles so sort of obstructive. And it ate through our budget trying to get these subtitles correct. But it was something that we had set out as a value of something that we wanted to do, and we wanted to stick by that. So I think a lot of times when, in these spaces, trying to make them as accessible as possible is something that all of us need to keep in mind, and think about who's sort of putting their body in our hands, sort of as Arturo was saying earlier, and how can we make sure that we're sort of honoring that relationship and taking care of them as best as possible.
Just as a corollary to that, I have one of my PhD students who's defending this month. His whole dissertation is on that question of accessibility and how do you make this stuff work for people who have very limited potentials. And what he's come up with in this dissertation is XR designers have to go through being in an experience with those limited possibilities. And once they are in there, they figure out ways to make it easier for the people. So that's a really good technique. Limit the people who are designing and then see how they come up with new solutions.
It's challenging to think about putting yourself into the body of someone else. I have a friend who's a quadriplegic, and so I went around for a year looking for smart glasses that he would be able to use. Turns out there's almost none that would work with voice only, not requiring gesture. Right? But these are the sorts of things that we typically don't design for. And so as you're growing new works, and each of you are growing interesting and new works that are on different edges, whether it's storytelling or simulations and gaming and also in an experience design, how are you helping to enable other people to experiment at those edges while also building a consent-based approach for that edge that you're dancing on together? Like, do you have a way of articulating that, or are you sort of finding it in the moment? Is it improvisational, or is it more sort of structured? I mean, Sultan, you mentioned you have a system, you have hype, right?
Yeah, I actually came up with this design methodology because of a lack thereof. I was in the design lab at MIT, and we were doing this project called Connected Lighting for Caring Cities. So how do we move from smart cities to caring cities? And then long story short, everyone was miserable in the lab. So it's like, how are we going to make something that's supposed to be caring and caring for citizens. When the processes that we're going through in the lab, like there was nothing. It was sort of a really intense environment, and so hype actually came out of this concept of like really thinking critically about sort of making stopgaps. I think a lot of times we create the our production process and we have our budget. I always say your ethics need to exist in your budget.
Yes.
And if you aren't carving out time for accessibility elements, if you aren't carving out time for people to experiment and do focus groups, with different populations, then as you get into the crazy XR development process, you're going to just run right over all of those things. And so for me, I think at the start of the project, really thinking critically, what are the ethics that are driving or your mission that you're driving your project with, and then how can you build those, build sort of stopgaps. And so hype grew out of this thing of me thinking deeply about, when I put myself into a project, how do I make sure that it's being ethical, it's being sort of caring in what you're making, and that's where the project evolution piece came. I realized that you do need extra time and extra space when you really are committed to some of these goals. So you can't having that hard deadline or that hard budget if you didn't build in time in advance to do testing, to do different rounds of evolution of the project, then you end up making something that doesn't sort of fully reflect your ethics or your values. And so, so that's, I think that design methodology, that whole way of thinking really came about from examining sort of ethical practices when making.
I think some of us have been on the other side of it, where whoever we're working with doesn't want to put the budget forward for testing or ethical design process or making sure that things are appropriate for the audience.
I think one thing that we should start seeing is every company needs to have an ethics board. I've been on one ethics board for one company, and it's the only one I've really heard of. But if we start to raise the expectation that companies need to have this at the forefront of their business model, then we're going to make a little bit of advancement there.
Some of our tech companies are being forced into that corner by our governments. And that will change how we design as well, whether that's the GDPR or whether that's Meta getting skewered in Congress this week.
Or whether we, as a industry, start out, since we're so new, and adhere to things like the XR Guild's ideas of like who should be making, how should we be making it, what should we be thinking, how should we be approaching this. We have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity here to kind of hit a restart button, I think, and it's very optimistic, it's very idealistic, but I truly believe that we are at a moment where we can hit that restart button. When we get people like Sultan leading, MIT's Reality Hack, we're on our way. But let's not let this go. Let's embrace what we can do here and really shift the future of the way that technologies are created, embrace, experience, etc. Because it's definitely happening now. I mean, I'm amazed at what are the kind of calls I'm getting now. It's really happening, and this is a really important moment for everybody in this community to stand up for these kind of values.
I will say it's really great to see in our audience today gender parity. We've got a really great audience of people, young and old, from all walks of life. The diversity in the XR industry has been one of the things that has kept me here. And I think it's what's drawn people from example, from media, filmmaking, for example, where a lot of women ran away because they weren't seeing opportunities to grow or become a CEO or lead something that they wanted to lead. So I want to encourage those of you who are maybe new in your career to see that you are a part of something that is extraordinary. Most fields don't look like this. And we're really lucky that we have come this far, and we have a long way to go. So as we're thinking about how to do our best work together, and we have a room full of collaborators and we have a stream full of collaborators, what are the things that you want to ask for from the rest of us in this industry as we're thinking about how we come together, maybe form a standard or form a body or just all sign on to the XR Guild Ethics Board. What do you want to put forward?
One thing that I've been thinking about is developing sort of like I was calling it the XR Genome Project, because I really think from a storytelling standpoint, I mean, Nani has been amazing in that she's sort of created a narrative language and taking sort of the journalistic style and aesthetic and bringing it into XR. But I really feel like I was at I won't name which festival of XR last year, and I was just really sort of whelmed with a lot of the VR experiences that I was seeing, and they felt very safe, and and it felt like I said to someone, it felt like I was seeing 2018 XR, and so I really am thinking a lot about how do we advance our collective storytelling technique, and how do we sort of shift or deepen the relationship between technique and affect, so that we can get more sophisticated storytelling. And I think a lot of that will come from people taking risks. That's one great thing I love about the hackathon is the stakes are really low. Like you got 3 days to just try to make something. And so you can take a lot of risks without thinking about, budgets or supervisors or all of these other things that usually govern the creative process. But I just think, we need to focus on sort of ways that we can come together to, I was also thinking about like an archive. The XR Genome Project would be an archive, and it would archive like the different projects that have happened, because we aren't keeping track of like types of stories and things that are coming out. So there are experiences that might have been made on like a Rift 1 or something, and you can't even experience those anymore. And so if we think about the film industry, right, I can Google a 1908 film and find it on YouTube because somebody took the time to archive that project. And so one of the things I think we need to start doing collectively is like thinking about how do we start archiving a lot of this early work as the headsets change and things like that. Can we get to a standard of a headset where we can go back and find older projects, at least from the last 7, 8, 9 years, and then like get them to a standard where they're preserved. And then can we also, in that same endeavor, sort of sift through those experiences and find different ways to deepen our storytelling technique. And so, pretty soon, hopefully, we'll be launching this initiative, so maybe you'll hear about it in the future.
I think we'd like to bring that into the XR Guild Hall as well as an opportunity to work together on research and the sciences here.
But also don't forget to have fun, right, Arturo? Don't forget to have fun, because it is a lot of fun.
I think Sultan has a really great point here that the history has been lost in many ways, and it has not been archived, and there is no way to. The first time I went in VR chat and I was talking to somebody about these experiences I'd made over the years, they said, well, where can we experience them? And I said, well, you can't anymore. And they said, well, then they didn't happen. And and so, I don't think you can experience any of the VR I've ever made. And yet there is no way to archive it. There are people working on it. Documentation, please document everything you do, because that may be all we have. And the rich history that happened in the early 80s and in the 90s, that stuff, a lot of people don't know. And luckily, a lot of it's coming out of the woodwork now. I'm working on a 2-volume set of a more inclusive history of virtual reality. And it's going to have stories from people that we don't usually hear from, but you still can't very well experience those works. There's one that's been rebuilt 3 or 4 times now, and that's the work of Shar Davies with Osmos and Ephemerae, but that costs millions to redo every time. So it is a big problem. At least know the history, though. That's the thing. And all of these ones that are coming out now that are so wonderful, the half-life of a VR experience is 2 years, if you're lucky. And they just canceled BOGO, which was one I always made my classes do because of the agency and the interaction there. And I don't know why they canceled it. I mean, it still would run fine. But these things are not future-proof. Experience them while you can. Remember them. Document them, and learn from them.
You know, I've been surprised at how long Hunger in L.A., which was that piece, right, from 2012 is when it launched. So I made it in 2010. And it's showing at a Pacific Standard Time, a Getty exhibit in June. It's like literally, I'm a museum piece, I wasn't kidding. It's showing in London in March. So I think people are trying to now, as you said, archive these pieces. So just for some little bit of hope that some of these early pieces do hang on to them, put them up on Steam. You know, even if they're kind of ugly and awkward, people sometimes still appreciate them, right? I mean, and also the good news, things have changed. Like when I did the piece Project Syria about Syrian refugees and I put it up on Steam, I was showing just last night a slide of all the vitriol I got.
I remember those comments that when you put it up there. They're like, "What kind of game is this? This is a stupid game."
Well, it wasn't even that. It was very violent against me personally. It was the last time I put anything up on Facebook because I got a lot of very personal attacks, and I don't think we're seeing that with some of the more there's Cam's piece on the trans experience, and despite how under attack the trans community is right now, I don't think he's had any of these personal attacks. And frankly, it's been the opposite. He's shown the piece in like Oklahoma and found that people have said, "Thank you so much. You've opened my eyes to my child's experience, et cetera, et cetera." So I'm ever hopeful. As I said, I'm always the optimist sitting here, but I'm actually been amazed that Hunger can still play built-in Unity. So if we don't lose Unity, and Unity's obviously undergoing some very interesting transitions at the moment, I think we maybe hopefully stand a chance to have a little bit of a longer archive, I guess.
I just wanted to chime in. I think I know we're looking for that hockey stick moment, but I think we got to savor this moment. We're like big enough to be visible, but we're still pretty independent. And as a community, I love going to AWE and these things, and then you end up in somebody's house, and you see how smaller communities and how everybody just loves the space. Money's not driving us yet. That's a good thing. Like we're here because we love it. And that creates a spirit of things that I think is very important. We got to cherish that. We didn't do this. We didn't get started on this for money either. Like it was my creative director and this developer that we had in Caracas, and he didn't even have a headset when he started. The first 6 months was coding without the headset. It was those two guys who made Synth Riders, and our team built from within the community, and we found all these people that went by usernames and not real names, right? And all these quirky people that would not be employed, and they became our team. And so I think this space still has that countercultural side of it, brings people from places you wouldn't expect. The person that really is the key linchpin for Synth Riders, she lives in Adelaide, Australia, in the middle of nowhere in a farm. Or like a vineyard side, and you wouldn't expect, like she doesn't have the background. We wouldn't have hired her on CV. So I think that just the moment we're in, you have this passion for the space and these people that are very smart who may be unemployable in some ways, and yet they are finding their space because this takes a little bit of a quirky side to come in and play with tools that don't have patterns and that don't have standards. And it's not, you don't even know if it's going anywhere at some point. So I think all that brings a kind of group that we should cherish. So I think we're in a golden moment. Let's embrace it. And there's lots of opportunities.
Well, I definitely regret. I regret that I can't see your early pieces, Jackie. I regret it very much. So
they would look so low res today. I mean, we had 640 pixels, if whether you needed them or not. So.
But here we go. Here we go. You're right.
We got to do a recovery project here.
I know.
It is astonishing how far we've come in the last, decade of XR, realistically, and 2 decades of virtual experiences shared. I met 2 of these folks in Second Life going on 15 years ago now. So culture matters, and it is a very sticky thing if you think about these relationships and how they evolve over time. We have time for one question. So if there is one question from the audience, we can do exactly one.
Who's the lucky person?
Make it a good question, guys.
You can do more than one question.
No pressure, though.
No pressure. I see a hand. Come on up. I'm gonna come and bring the mic to you.
Thanks. You're all going to hate me. So sorry in advance. But my question is, off the top of your heads, how, with regards to ethics and everything that you're doing in the virtual space, do you feel about Neuralink and that sort of interfacing that's burgeoning alongside you?
It's a very good question.
About Neuralink. Neuralink, right?
Neuralink and BCI.
No, they're different. They're different. They're different because, well,
You brought it.
so Neuralink obviously is a brain embedded device, or which, by the way, we know has certain usefulness and certain physiological. People have been damaged in their spines. We know that they can have this sort of useful thing, but having met that founder and seen the devices that he was doing prior to the embed, I think that it's going to move so fast the way that AI is reading people's thoughts and stuff that we don't need a brain embed. That many of the things that the promise of Neuralink, I think is just going to go away. I don't believe. Call me crazy, and later on you're going, Nani, you're an idiot. See how it's everybody's getting this thing underneath their skull. I frankly think that we're not going to need to do that. You're going to have the same scary stuff with AI reading your thoughts, which we're seeing already some pretty successful experiments around that we won't need an embedded device.
And everything that we put out, it's not just AI reading our thoughts. There are so many senses we have that could be monitored or that would tell so much about us that the brain isn't the only way to us.
I just not sure that it's going to be a successful company because of that it's going to get overtaken by other newer technologies.
I think it'll work for people that have damage.
That's right. Well, that's what I said.
But I also think that's not his motivation for having that company. So, he wants to really be directly connected to his sentient AI stuff, and the fact that he can promote this as a solution for people who have damage is the way he gets past the questions about it. So it's
that early study in which a number of individuals who had damaged who were quadriplegics were put in, they wanted to use the headset or Oculus to let people control brain-computer interface devices, and what they were doing is having people imagine their bodies moving, and that actually returned some brain synapses. So individuals just thinking about their body now suddenly had control over their bowel movements they didn't have before. Now, it wasn't like they're getting up and walking, but this is an early study, and it was a quality of life shift. And this is just by using the power of thought and mind and in these immersive ways without having to have a device implanted. So, what is the goal of Neuralink, right? If it's a altruistic goal in which we're going to deal with individuals who can are going to need that kind of stimulation. There's a lot of stuff on the cochlear implants, right? There's a lot of people who are very much opposed now to cochlear implants because they can be very horrible. The experience can be really, really horrible. And why do that? Why can't you just have this existence without a cochlear implant that is quite effective? Because we think that we should impose this shift and change. So I'm just saying it's a lot more complicated than that, and I don't think we're going to need a Neuralink for the average individual. That's my very strong opinion.
Sultan, did you have any thoughts you wanted to add to the Neuralink conversation?
No, I mostly agree with Nani. I think the potential for people with disabilities, I think there's a lot of room to experiment and see what comes up. At the moment, I'm just I'm hopeful that there will be sort of a surprise use case or something. I think there's, you always start off with the trajectory of what you're trying to hit. And so I'm hopeful that as they experiment, specifically in the healthcare world, that they might discover something. And so I'm reserving judgment until I see more evidence of what comes about.
Thanks for your question, by the way. And I wanted to take a moment and sort of reset, because that's some heavy stuff, isn't it? Like, we were having a really great conversation about play and culture, and then Neuralink. Yeah. So it's interesting how some things just naturally make us feel good, like we want to go toward those experiences, and other ones maybe don't.
But they do encourage conversation, and I think that falls right in with the ethics conversations we were having. And I know my class, we went over Neuralink and Apple Vision Pro this week as things to talk about, and how do those fall into the real categories that make quality of life better.
So, quick question for all you all. How many of you want a Neuralink embedded? One?
Well, that's today. Wait for the marketing, though.
How many of you ordered an Apple Vision Pro? Or got one, or getting one? A couple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh,
Okay,
Apple did
so
a good
there's more
job.
like 15, 20 who want them.
Yeah, right.
That's
There's
right.
more than-
That's
yeah.
right.
Look, when I've got dementia, I might be very happy
If it cures
a
dementia,
Neuralink-
we might all want one.
Yeah.
I think it has potential for pain management.
But
I
so
look
does
forward
VR,
to it.
so
Yeah,
does
so do
VR.
a lot of things. without having that little hole in your head.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about the Apple Vision Pro, not the Neuralink.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, that's true.
I mean, there's got to be a reason why not more people have, what is it pronounced, timpaning or timpanning? Where they drilled holes in people's skull, which is supposed to cause some relief.
Release some pressure.
Yeah, release some pressure. I mean, there's not that many people who did that. So I think, once you get into that
It's kind of a
that
last
kind of
re- yeah,
penetration,
last resort.
Other kinds of penetration maybe be okay, but all right, I'm going to stop right there.
So experiment, but experiment where you feel comfortable, and maybe don't go for Any last thoughts?
I'm just going to chime in and put it on a lighter note. Like, in general with these technologies, I'm not afraid of technology. I'm afraid of people. And so, all we can do, we can control this, but I'm always like, at Klutch, we have this sort of people first policy, and it's about putting the people first. So put yourselves first and cultivate your own virtues according to what you can. Do the hard work internally. It's not easy. And then let the chips fall where they may. But let's try to be good people amongst each other.
I've learned a lot from y'all today. You can be hype and be critical at the same time. I really love that. I'm going to be far more willing to be both critical and excited and carry both of those energies at the same time.
Just a quick last announcement. The day before OSH starts, which we're all really excited about in Long Beach, we're going to do a little mini conference here on XR for world peace. So
All right.
on how we can use the technologies for good and caring, and we're trying to invite people around. So if anybody's interested on that, the 17th, we're going to set that up. We're just developing that right now.
So that's this summer, the day before AWE here, XR for World Peace. And then AWE in Long Beach, you saw the details on that at the beginning. There's going to be some sort of gathering happening along the side with XRGUILD and potentially some other orgs. So if you want to stay involved and want to find out, join XRGUILD and then we will let you know. Go ahead. I think we're done. So thank you all for joining us today. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Susan, for organizing.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Is this on? It is on. And don't forget to get your early bird tickets and save $800.
We're volunteering. And it's too much to do, but
And enjoy the food.
we would love to have you there.
Enjoy the food, too, as well. Next time, we'll have a little drinks at the end of the day.
Excellent. Thank you for Arizona State University for hosting us. Enjoy the food and have a great night.
And if everybody just doesn't mind just doing a really kind thing where you just take your plastic cups, there's recycling, bins at the corner and also trash. So if you don't mind just doing that when you're all finished, and please do take food because there's quite a bit. So appreciate you all. Thank you.
Sultan, we've got you on the screen. You want to wave goodbye? All right.